Hi, welcome again to our learning episode in technical report writing. Previously, we talked about listing, or we talked listing or how to write or enumerate a list in various formats or various types. Today, we'll be talking about figures and tables. So allow me to share my screen. In every technical written output, figures and tables are very much important because they are definitely usual. They're definitely usual. And tables is different from figures as figures different from tables. That means there is a specific purpose why we need to use figures, and there is also a specific purpose why we need to use tables. We'll get into those later. Now, there are 6 golden rules in using graphics in e-learning, and these 6 golden rules can also be applied in writing technically. Number one, graphics should simply uh, learning content, not complicated. That means the graphics must be simple and can easily be understood. Second, choose graphics that will be memorable and make learning content memorable. Graphics that are nice, graphics that can easily be remembered, graphics that are not too complex to remember. Consistency in style is key to creating beautifully designed graphics in e-learning. We have also to know how to properly balance color, shapes, spaces, and everything. Fourth, if graphics aren't self-explanatory, be sure to include a caption. A caption is very much important, and we have to make sure if the graphic is very or not very difficult but cannot be understood at one look, we have to make sure that the caption can definitely help the reader to understand the graphics. Fifth, avoid including graphics just for the sake of it. That means there is always a reason why we need to use graphics. There is always a reason why we need to include, let us say, tables, include figures. And then number 6, always use high quality graphics, especially if we are using figures or other illustrations. We have to make sure that the quality is in high definition, because we have to remember that these supposed to exist in a document for appreciation and to help understanding, no? However, if these would not help the readers to understand the text better, then I guess the very thing that we need to do is to forget including these items in our technical written outputs. Now, there are 5 rules for integrating graphics in our document. Number 1, we have to give each visual numbers, numbers and titles, because that would help readers recognize details. I mean, not recognize, but understand the table or the figure better, and they could be able to have a reference like, is this, are we, like, for example, is this paragraph talking about figure 1, table 1, figure 2, table 2? Second, refer to the caption number within the body text and discuss its content. We have to make sure that we understand the word discuss. When we say discuss, it doesn't mean you have to describe what is already demonstrated in the figure, or what is already demonstrated in the table. When we say discuss, it must provide interpretation. It must provide analysis. Okay, label all units. So that means we need to have titles or name for every column, or if that, let us say, a figure, for every element present in the figure. Next is we need to also recognize the source. Where did we get this photo? Where did we get this table? Where did we get this particular data that we are presenting? And then lastly, we have to make sure that the data or the image is not distorted. Again, previously we have said it must be with high quality for appreciation and for better understanding. Now, I have here an example of a figure using the APA 6th edition format. So when you try to look at this, when you try to look at this, there is an X and Y axis. Okay, this is the entire figure, but we have to look at how this figure is being numbered, and how this figure is being titled, and how this figure being discussed. Okay, so as we can observe, the figure number is in bold, and then there is a space between the figure number and its title. And the discussion can be found immediately right after the figure. This is the APA 6th edition format for figures. For tables, this is now the APA 6th edition format for table. Similar with figure, we have similar with how they format the figures, or how they format each figure. When it comes to table, the table numbering should be present first, and then there is a space between the table number and then the title, and then you now have your table. And when you try to look at the table itself, it does not have lines inside it. It's plain. It's a plain table. There's no lines inside the table, but you could be able to still see distinctions among columns and among rows. This is now the format for Chicago manual style. This Chicago manual style is another popular documentation style in the world of technical writing. Writing, and I believe most of the textbooks and most of the reports are using Chicago manual style, or CMS, compared to APA. However, APA is more popular in different types of research, especially in social sciences. Now, let's proceed with CMS, or Chicago manual style. This is the format for how they format table. When you try to look at this, the word table is capitalized. I mean, each letter in the word table is capitalized. Then you have the table number, and immediately right after table number, you have to put a period, and then immediately in italics you have to write now the title. You have to write now the title of the table. Now, when we try to look at the table in itself, again, the table also does not use lines inside. It's plain. And it's simple, but you can still see the distinction between the columns, and among the rows also. And there is a source right after the table in italics. Okay. Next is, this is now the Chicago manual style when it comes to figures. Similar with the table, similar with how they format the table, right after the figure number, there is a period, and then the title of the figure, and it is bolded. And then you now have the figure in itself, and the figure should observe legends, should observe captions, should observe details that would better explain that particular figure. Now, these are the types of visuals that may be present in a particular technical written output. And we say we have to choose wisely because there is a particular purpose for every type of visual. Let us say for tables. Tables can also be used if we want to place detailed data or information in categories formatted into rows and columns for comparison. That's the only thing that we need to use tables. Now, when it comes to graph, let us say when it comes to graph, we have bar graph, column graph, and then line graph. Probably people would say they are all graphs and we can use all of them. We can use all of them. We can use these graphs interchangeably, but we have to look at the reason or the purpose, of each classification. For bar graph, we can only use bar graph if we would like to show comparison and contrast between and among subjects. We can only use column graph if we want to reveal change in the subject at regular intervals on a particular time. Similarly with how businessmen would look at stock market. But line graph would show us the degree and direction of change relative to two variables. Compare items over time and show frequency or distribution or show correlation. The latest is, I guess the very example that we can use nowadays are reports of our Department of Health or WHO when it comes to COVID-19 cases in the Philippines or in the whole world in general. Next item is we have charts. There are different kinds of charts. We have pie charts, org chart, flow chart, and Gantt chart, and they do have different purposes also. Now, when we say bar chart, we can only use bar chart if we would like to display the number and relative size of the divisions of a particular subject. And it shows also relation of a particular part to the whole. That's why we are using pie chart, like how much is distributed, let us say, to this particular department of the government, and how much is distributed to this particular to another department of this government. And by simply looking at the pies, you could be able to analyze, hey, this is way bigger compared to the other. Next is we have org chart. We can only use org chart if we want to show a map of divisions or levels of responsibility in a particular organization, considering positions, hierarchy, etc. Flowchart is used if you want to show steps, if you want to show processes, if you want to show a certain procedure. And Gantt chart is only used to show progress of a particular project or a particular report or a particular program. Okay, and then last type is we have illustrations. Illustrations can be in a form of a diagram, a photo, an animation, or a film clip. Sometimes illustration can also be named as figures. Now, when we say diagram, this refers to this refers to the parts of a subject and their spatial or functional relationships, emphasize details, or show dimensions. When we talk of photo, that means we want to show what a particular subject looks like. That is a photo. When we say animation, we want to show a particular operation, a particular process, or a particular incident that is animated. So that is totally far different from a flow chart. Okay, and then lastly, a film clip. A film clip is also an illustration. And it shows a process, an operation, or an incident in a realistic detail, not animated. So if it is animated, you call that animation. If that shows a realistic detail, then that is what you call film clip. Now the question is this. The question might be, sir, how can we be able to use animation or film clip in a document that's supposed to be printed? That can still be possible. That can still be possible by simply showing, let us say, the link where they could be able to access the film clip, or if you can have what we call series of events showing actions of real individuals showing actions or process acted by real individuals, then that can be considered as film clip. Okay. Now again, this is my last slide. Again, if you have questions, you are free to send me an email, or you are free also to ask questions in our Messenger Teams channel. Again, thank you very much, and see you in our next learning episode.